What's up guys, Jonah Mathis here. The JBL Bar 9.1 is a very unique soundbar system. It is a completely wireless, Dolby Atmos and DTS:X compatible surround sound system. You'll see what I mean by completely wireless here shortly. Like most other high-end soundbar systems, it includes a beefy soundbar, a strong and stylish subwoofer, but the surround speakers are like no others. I want to point out a couple of things before we get too far. Now, number one, this is a 5.1.4 channel soundbar system, not a 9.1 channel system. This means we have 5 channels firing at ear level, 1 subwoofer, and 4 upward firing channels. And number two, Samsung owns Harman Kardon, who owns JBL, so this system likely shares some components with other Samsung systems. In the box, you'll get the soundbar itself, 2 surround speakers, a subwoofer, mounting hardware for the soundbar and surround speakers, an HDMI cable, power cables for the soundbar and subwoofer, a remote control with included batteries, and documentation for the system. The soundbar is quite compact when compared to other higher-end soundbar systems. It's only 34.8 inches wide without the surrounds attached, 4.7 inches deep, and 2.4 inches tall, weighing in at only 8 pounds. The surrounds are also very compact. They're only 6.8 inches wide, 4.7 inches deep, 2.4 inches tall, weighing in at about 1.6 pounds each. They're definitely the shortest surround speakers that I've ever seen in a soundbar system. With these connected to the soundbar, it's about 47 inches wide in total. The subwoofer, however, is quite large and has a decent footprint to it. It's 12 inches by 12 inches with a height of 17.3 inches, weighing in at 25 pounds. It uses a 10-inch subwoofer, which is larger than what most others use. Most others are usually an 8-inch subwoofer. I'll talk about this more a little later, but I'm in love with this subwoofer. The design of this entire system is one of my favorites. All of the components are a very nice and clean dark gray color. The soundbar has a grille covering the entire front, then perforated sections on the top for the upward firing speakers. The top is slightly rounded and not completely flat, and the bottom has rubber feet already attached to it. There's an LED display on the front that tells you the current status of the system. It's nice that the display only illuminates whenever you change the volume, input, or when the system needs to tell you something important. Now here's the most standout feature about this system. There are very strong magnets, charging pins, and slots for the surround speakers to dock to on each end of the soundbar. The way that JBL designed this is absolutely incredible. The magnets are ridiculously strong, and the 2 prongs and lip on the soundbar make it so the surround speakers don't disconnect by applying pressure downwards. They only disconnect by pulling them outwards. The surround speakers match the soundbar very well by having the same grille covering the front and wrapping to the outside of the speaker. The tops are also perforated for the upward firing speakers. As mentioned already, the surround speakers dock with the soundbar to charge. JBL claims that they have about a 10-hour battery life and can fully recharge in about 3 hours. However, a lot of people claim that they cannot get anywhere close to 10 hours of battery life out of the surround speakers. Fortunately, they do have a micro USB charging port if you'd prefer to keep them as surrounds at all times. But then again, you're going back to dealing with more power cables and it's no longer a completely wireless system. The subwoofer is simple and beautiful. It has a 10-inch downfiring subwoofer, so you can expect more ground-shaking bass than most other subs out there. It has a glossy port on the back to reduce pressure in the enclosure and produce an overall better sound quality. And each leg has a rubber padding on the bottom to reduce vibrations. The system is very simple to set up and configure. On the back of the soundbar, there are a few different connections available. Of course, there's a power input, an HDMI eARC or HDMI out port, a single HDMI input, digital optical in, Ethernet, and USB. It's unfortunate that there's only a single HDMI input instead of having 2 HDMI inputs. Well, at least it has one. Looking at you, Sonos Arc. Setting up this system is extremely simple. Connect the surround speakers to each end of the soundbar, then connect the power to both the soundbar and subwoofer. When you power on the soundbar initially, it will prompt you to connect it to Wi-Fi. You don't have to connect it to the network if you don't want to, but this does give you AirPlay and Chromecast capabilities. Simply open the Google Home app on your phone and tap Setup JBL Bar 9.1. Then follow the instructions in the app to complete the setup. Again, it's very quick and simple to get the system configured and set up properly. The soundbar itself has 4 clicky buttons on the top of it: power, volume down, volume up, and input. The remote control is extremely simple. There are individual input buttons for audio from the TV, HDMI, and Bluetooth. Of course, there are volume up, down, and mute buttons as well. And lastly, there are 3 buttons that change the levels for Atmos, bass, and rear. For Atmos, this helps adjust the height of your ceiling. There are 3 different options available: low, mid, and high. So if you have shorter ceiling, I would try out low or mid, and if you have higher ceilings, then I would try out mid or high. Your mileage may vary here. The rear button adjusts the levels of the wireless surround speakers. There are 4 different options here: muted, low, mid, and high. Then the bass button adjusts the subwoofer's levels, and there are 5 different levels available: 1 through 5. 1 being the smallest amount of bass and 5 being the most amount of bass. Unfortunately, there isn't an app for this system. Though you can control the volume level, pause, play, and skip songs through Google Home, you can't actually adjust any of the system settings. So you will need to use the remote control to fine-tune the system. And by fine-tune, I literally mean volume level, bass, rear, and Atmos. That's all you can adjust with the system. It definitely makes it simple for some people, but this is going to frustrate those that really want to dial in their systems by adjusting each individual channel. So I'd say this is the first major downside for the JBL Bar 9.1. Now moving on to music sound quality and video sound quality, I want to mention that I'm not including any audio test in this video. I've said this in a lot of my previous videos, but it's a complete waste of time to include these because there's no way you're actually going to understand what it sounds like through YouTube video. Now, I'm not going to go on my whole spiel, but just know there aren't going to be any sound tests in this video. Now let's discuss music sound quality. I said this in my big soundbar comparison video not too long ago. Click there if you're interested in watching that. But I was very surprised by the JBL Bar 9.1. You can stream music to the system through Chromecast or AirPlay. Make sure you connect it to your network through the Google Home app. Chromecast connects very quickly and worked quite well for me. However, I had a ton of issues with getting AirPlay to work properly. I rebooted the JBL system, my home network, my Apple devices many times, but I struggled to get AirPlay working consistently. I'm not sure if this is a problem that others have or not, but this is definitely a problem with my setup. Anyways, when streaming music, the rear surrounds play in a stereo format. To explain that simply, whatever you're playing on the soundbar is mimicked to the surround speakers. I think the average person is going to be very impressed with the music quality that it can produce. Of course, if you're an audiophile, you may not be impressed at all, but then again, why are you watching a soundbar video? You shouldn't have any issues with this system filling a medium-sized living room or a larger enclosed room. The bass from the subwoofer is very strong and punchy. I actually keep the bass level set to 2 most of the time. I set it to 3 when I want a little more punch, but anything above 3 is a little too much for my liking. I prefer my neighbors not kick in my front door to tell me to turn things down. The mid-range is fairly clear and precise, but it's not as good as the Sonos Arcs or the Samsung Q950T's mid-range. Overall, I think a vast majority of people will agree that music sounds very good on the system for its price point. Now for sound quality with Dolby Atmos and DTS:X content. I think the system will satisfy the average consumer's want for 3D sound. The soundbar itself doesn't provide a super wide soundstage. This is definitely one of the disadvantages of having surround speakers that dock with the soundbar. If they're connected, you get an extremely wide soundstage, but don't have any surround audio. But when they're set up as surrounds, you lose the wider, more immersive front soundstage in exchange for surround audio. Regardless, the soundbar still sounds good and can provide plenty of sound for a room. Dialogue seems to be clear even when there's a ton going on at one time. The bass is extremely strong because, again, of this amazing subwoofer that comes with this system. The subwoofer definitely holds its own when compared to other higher-end systems like this one. Again, it's extremely punchy, so if that's what you're into, you're gonna love this system. The surround speakers are pretty darn impressive considering that they're battery powered and completely wireless. I think that they will surprise most people with how much sound they can actually produce. Now, they aren't as clear or as strong as the Sonos One or One SLs or the Samsung Q950T surrounds, but you can't really expect them to be. I think they perfectly balance this system. The upward firing sound effects from both the soundbar and surrounds are very convincing. In a smaller to medium-sized room with flat ceilings, you'll definitely appreciate the quality. Rain, thunder, dramatic car chases, and more are all extremely immersive from this fairly compact system. Like I said, the only thing that I'm not the biggest fan of is how wide the soundbar itself is. It just doesn't provide the extra fullness that you get from wider and more expensive soundbar systems. So there's a lot of things that I really love about this system, and then just a few things that I really don't like so much. First, I want to go over the pros, or all the things that I really enjoy and really like about the JBL Bar 9.1. Number one, for the price, it's a great deal for what this system can do. The 3D audio is very convincing, more so than what you might think. The subwoofer is an absolute beast, super punchy, clear, and overall great to have in this system. The audio is pretty consistent across different streaming platforms and streaming devices. From my experience, there have been no random dropouts. The surrounds and subwoofers haven't cut out at all for me. Most other systems, except for the Sonos system, have done this to me at some point. Now for the things that I really don't like so much about this system, again, there's not that much. Number one is the lack of controls and the fact that there's no mobile application. It's nice that the remote control is very simple, but it's annoying that you can't manually set the EQ levels or adjust individual channel levels. Keep in mind that you can basically do this on any other comparable soundbar system. There are some hidden audio settings that you would absolutely never know about unless you read through the full user manual. There's an auto calibration feature, audio syncing adjustments, smart mode, and more, but you'd never know about these things unless you watch this video or another where they mentioned it, or if you actually read the manual. If they had an app, they could easily build these settings into it, and there'd be no confusion, no random pattern of button presses that you'd have to do to adjust these things. And even still, you still can't adjust channel levels. Like, why not? That's what most people want to be able to do, is adjust the individual channel levels. I'm not sure why you can't do it on this system, but every other comparable system, you can do it. This is probably one of my biggest gripes about this system, if you can't tell. Number two, a lot of people report issues with the batteries in the surround speakers. Things like the battery life only lasting for an hour or two, and battery warning messages appearing on the soundbar frequently. Now personally, I haven't experienced these things at all. I've been able to get about 8 hours out of the surround speakers, but I think this is more of a case-by-case basis. I'm not really sure. And lastly, the system does support 5.1 PCM audio, but there are reports that there are some consistency issues with the PCM audio codec. I do a lot of my testing with an NVIDIA Shield TV Pro, and it has worked flawlessly for me. With a streaming device like an Apple TV, you might run into some audio compatibility issues where you don't get Dolby Atmos when you should. I can't personally speak on this, but I felt it's important to include because I did see quite a few people saying that they had issues with this. So, do I think the soundbar is worth it for the price of $1,000? Absolutely, but I think it's better for certain use cases. If you have a very open room where cables for surround speakers would be too difficult to hide, or you don't have a lot of room behind your main seating area, then this system is a perfect option for you. In general, a majority of people are going to enjoy listening to both music and watching movies with this soundbar system. Overall, it's a great system, but there are other options out there that are fairly close to this price. So I want you to check out my extensive soundbar comparison video where I looked at a Sonos Arc surround system, Samsung HW Q950T, LG SN11RG, Vizio Elevate, Nakamichi Shockwave Ultra, and the JBL Bar 9.1. There's a lot of things to consider when spending this much money on a soundbar system. So check out that video to get a really good overview of 6 comparable Dolby Atmos and DTS:X systems. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's anything that I missed or you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment down below. If you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you'd smash that like button. This helps my channel grow and makes it so my videos can be seen by more people. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.